They say the universe respects only two things: power and predictability. The Galactic Compact has spent 10,000 years proving that point. Their fleets are mathematics given form. Their laws are carved in neutron star alloy. And their justice is a machine so perfect it has never once made a mistake. Until now, because the Compact doesn't understand humans. It doesn't understand that we don't just break rules. We breathe in the space between them. We build homes in the cracks of logic. And when we love like a supernova, brief, violent, and bright enough to leave after images on the soul. Commander Eva Salieri is about to remind the galaxy of something it forgot. The executioner she trained. The soldier she loves. The order she cannot refuse. This is not a story about right and wrong. This is a story about what happens when the universe's most perfect system meets humanity's most imperfect heart. Brace yourself. The air on Compact Station Themis smelled like nothing. Eva had noticed that on her first day, 7 years ago, no ozone, no recycled metal tang, no hint of the 2000 species cycling through its docking rings. Just null. Sterile. The way bureaucrats thought justice should smell. She stood in Observation 7, watching the approach vector through polarized crystal. The prisoner transport was 3 minutes out. Small speck against the nebula's bruised purple glow. She tracked it across 4 systems, through 2 jump gates, past the whisper network of traders who owed her favors and the official channels that had gone silent. Commander. She didn't turn. Status. Lieutenant Vex's mandibles clicked in that particular rhythm she'd learned meant discomfort. The execution chamber is prepped. Neural dampeners calibrated. Witness seats allocated to all Compact signatory species. All 17. All 17. Eva let her forehead rest against the cold crystal. Just for a second. And the prisoner's medical readout. A longer pause. Vex had learned enough from her over 3 years to know when to hesitate. Elevated cortisol. Pupillary response suggests fear-based aggression cycles. But stable. Physically stable. Physically stable. Not mentally. Not emotionally. Those words didn't exist in Compact legal vocabulary. The prisoner was breathing. That was all the machine cared about. Anything else? Vex shifted his weight. All 4 legs of it, the Terrasian equivalent of a human sigh. The prisoner has requested a final statement. To be delivered privately. To you. Eva closed her eyes. There it is. She'd been waiting for that message since the arrest warrant came through. Dreading it. Needing it. The one voice in the universe she couldn't refuse, speaking through legal channels and encrypted frequencies and the ghost of a handshake from 3 years ago. Denied, she said. Commander, that's an order, Lieutenant. Vex clicked again, softer this time. A sound she taught him meant I see you, and I disagree, but I will follow. He withdrew. The door hissed shut, and Eva was alone with the speck growing larger in the window. 3 minutes. She pulled up the file on her wrist comp. Not the official one. The redacted version the Compact had given her, stripped of context and humanity and everything that mattered. The other file. The one she'd built herself, byte by stolen byte, over 18 months of sleepless nights. Subject, Kalen Arvad species. Human, naturalized Compact citizen, Class 2, date of recruitment. Standard Cycle 14.882 training commenced. Cycle 14.883 trainer. Commander Eva Salieri, human, Compact Judicial Division, specialization. Close quarters pacification, diplomatic extraction, psychological operation status. Convicted of sedition, Class A. Unauthorized information dissemination, Class A. Incitement, Class B. She trained him for 11 months. Every morning at 0500, Deck 4, Simulation Bay 7. He'd shown up late the first day, cocky, underfed, wearing the hollow look of someone who'd grown up in Compact foster systems. A human boy raised by algorithms. No family, no history, just a serial number and a chip on his shoulder the size of a moon. You're late, she'd said. Time's relative. She'd swept his legs out from under him before he finished the word relative. He hit the mat hard, air exploding out of his lungs. So is consciousness, she'd said, offering a hand. Get up. He'd looked at her hand like it might bite him. Then, he'd taken it. And for 11 months, he'd been hers. Not in any way the Compact would understand. Not ownership. Something older. something the machine species and the logic minds and the 17 signatory races had forgotten how to name. Trust. He'd been good, better than good. He'd been the kind of student who didn't just learn techniques, but questioned them, broke them, rebuilt them into something smarter. She'd watched him spar against Terracian veterans and hold his ground. Watched him talk a Kelvana separatist down from a hostage situation with nothing but empathy and a cup of tea. Watched him grow from a brittle, angry boy into a man who laughed with his whole body and cried at bad poetry, and just once held her hand during a meteor storm because the sound of debris hitting the hull made him flinch. She hadn't stopped him. That was the detail that would destroy her if she let it. She'd seen the warning signs, the questions that went too deep, the way he'd started looking at compact doctrine the way a butcher looks at meat, dissecting, evaluating, finding the weak points. She told herself it was healthy skepticism, the mark of a good operative. She'd been wrong, or maybe she'd been right, and the compact had been wrong, and the galaxy didn't have room for both truths. 2 minutes. Eva turned from the window. Station Themis operated on a 27-hour cycle, artificial day-night programmed to match the circadian rhythms of its majority population, the Xylosians, who slept in 4-minute bursts and considered human sleep patterns a form of slow suicide. The corridors were dim now, lit by bioluminescent panels that pulsed like a dying heart. She walked. Her boots made no sound on the absorption flooring. Another compact innovation. Justice should be quiet, unobtrusive. It should slide into a room like a scalpel, not an axe. She passed the meditation alcove where she'd spent her first year learning Xylosian breathing techniques. Past the mess hall where she'd shared 17,000 meals with people whose names she'd forgotten and 3 whose names she'd never forget. Past the memorial wall, 642 names of compact officers killed in the line of duty. She'd added 17 of them herself after firefights and extraction missions and one disastrous negotiation that had gone sideways because a translator chip had malfunctioned and turned surrender into surrender your mothers. Her hand drifted to her hip. No siderum. Executioners didn't carry weapons inside the chamber. The weapon was the chamber. A perfect machine designed by perfect minds to deliver perfect justice. One button, one pulse of quantum dissonance. The prisoner's neural pathways collapsed into a single, painless, irreversible flatline. Painless. That's what the manuals said. She'd read the autopsy reports. She knew better. 1 minute. The execution chamber sat at Station Themis's core, a sphere of polished obsidian ringed by 17 observation booths, each pressurized to a different atmosphere, each containing witnesses from the signatory species. The compact believed in transparency, in accountability, in making sure every death was seen, recorded, and filed in triplicate. Eva stopped outside the antechamber. Through the polarized door, she could see the silhouette of the restraint frame. Empty. Waiting. Her wrist comm buzzed. Private channel. Encrypted. She almost didn't answer. Then she did. Salieri. Static. Then, a voice she hadn't heard in 3 years. Rougher than she remembered. Thinner. But unmistakably his. Hey, Commander. Her throat closed. She forced it open. You're not supposed to have access to external comms. You taught me that every system has a back door. You just have to know where to look. I taught you a lot of things. A pause. She could hear him breathing, shallow, fast, the way he'd breathed during his first live fire exercise. The way he'd breathed the night he'd told her about the foster systems, about the algorithm that had decided his aptitude score, about the cold bed and the colder meals, and the way he'd learned to count ceiling tiles, because counting sheep was for children with parents. Yeah, he said. You did. Eva pressed her palm against the door. The metal was warm. Everything on Themis was warm, regulated to Xylosian comfort levels that left humans perpetually slightly overheated. She'd learned to ignore it, learned to ignore a lot of things. Why did you do it, Kalen? No answer, just breathing. Then, you know why. I know what the file says. I want to know what you say. Another pause. Longer. When he spoke again, his voice had shifted. Lower, steadier, the voice he used when he'd made a decision and wasn't going to back down. There's a planet. F-class, 4th moon, 3rd system from the Torrent Gate. The compact classified it as unsuitable for development 700 years ago. Do you know what that means? It means no one lives there. It means no compact citizens live there. But there are people, Commander. 12,000 of them. Descendants of a transport ship that crashed during the expansion wars. They've been there for 20 generations. They have a language, a culture, a god they pray to in a dialect of old Earth Mandarin that doesn't exist anywhere else in the galaxy. Eva closed her eyes. She could see where this was going. Had seen it 18 months ago, when the first reports of unauthorized colonial activity had crossed her desk. The compact found them last year, Kalen said. Their assessment team filed a recommendation. Relocation, re-education, genetic screening to correct deviation from baseline human norms. Re-education isn't. It's erasure, Commander. You know it. I know it. The only people who don't know it are the ones sitting in those 17 booths, breathing their different air, watching us through their different eyes. His voice cracked, just slightly. They were going to take 12,000 people and turn them into ghosts. So I stopped them. You leaked the assessment report. I burned it, poured it into every data stream I could find, sent it to human colonies, non-compact worlds, independent media outlets, anyone who could make noise. And now 12,000 people know they're about to be erased. That's not stopping anything, Kalen. That's just giving them a chance to fight. His breath hitched. You taught me that. You said the worst thing you can do to someone is take away their choices. You said I know what I said. The door was warm against her palm. She could feel the thrum of the station's core through the metal. A heartbeat that wasn't hers. Commander. His voice softened. Eva, don't. Please don't. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking you to save me. I'm just asking you to remember. When you push that button, remember what you taught me. Remember why you taught it. The channel went dead. Eva stood there for a long moment. The station hummed. The lights pulsed. Somewhere in the observation booths, 17 species were settling into their seats, preparing to witness the perfect machinery of compact justice. She pulled her hand away from the door. Then, she pushed it open. The antechamber was small, intimate, designed for the final interview between executioner and condemned, a tradition the compact had adopted from some long-dead species and never bothered to question. Eva had always hated this room. Too much like a confession booth. Too much like a lie. Kalen sat on the restraint frame, wrists and ankles bound by magnetic cuffs. He looked thinner than she remembered. Paler. The scar above his left eyebrow. The one he'd gotten during training, when she'd miscalculated a throw and sent him into a bulkhead, stood out white against his skin. He looked up when she entered. His eyes were the same. Green-brown, flecked with gold. The color of a forest she'd seen once on a world whose name she'd forgotten. Commander. Kalen. He smiled. Small. Tired. You look good. I look like I haven't slept in 3 days. Which on you looks good. She almost laughed. Almost. The sound caught her throat and died there, replaced by something heavier. She walked to the edge of the restraint frame, close enough to touch him. She didn't. The witnesses are in position, she said. The chamber is primed. In 15 minutes, I'm going to walk in there, and I'm going to push a button, and your neural pathways are going to collapse. I know. Do you have any final requests? Under compact law, I'm required to ask. He tilted his head. That old gesture, curious, slightly mocking, full of a gentleness that had always surprised her. You're required to ask. You're not required to grant. I'm asking anyway. He was quiet for a moment. Then, tell me a story. A story. The one you used to tell. About the garden. Eva's chest tightened. She knew the story. Had told it to him a dozen times on long transport flights and sleepless nights and one terrible morning after a mission had gone wrong and he'd killed someone for the first time. It wasn't a compact story. It wasn't even a true story. It was something her grandmother had told her on a planet that no longer existed, in a language that had died with her people. That's not a final request. That's just, it's what I want. His eyes held hers. Please. She sat down on the edge of the frame, close enough that their knees almost touched, close enough that she could smell him, sweat, fear, something underneath that was just him, the scent of a person she'd known better than anyone in the galaxy. There was a garden, she began. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. At the edge of a city that had forgotten it existed. The garden had walls made of light and gates made of music, and anyone who wanted to enter had to answer 3 questions. What were the questions? The first question was, what do you love? And if you couldn't answer, the gate wouldn't open. Kalen closed his eyes. His breathing slowed. The second question was, what do you fear? And If you lied, the gate would turn you away. The third question? His voice was barely a whisper. Eva paused. The station hummed. The lights pulsed. Somewhere above them, 17 species watched through polarized crystal, waiting for justice. The third question, she said, was what are you willing to lose? Kalen opened his eyes. He was crying, quietly without sound, tears sliding down his cheeks and into the stubble on his jaw. I'm willing to lose everything, he said. I already have. Eva reached out, slowly, giving him time to pull away. He didn't. Her fingers brushed his cheek, wiped away the tears. His skin was warm, alive, human. I know, she said. And then she stood up. The execution chamber was a sphere of polished obsidian. The observation booths ringed its equator, 17 bubbles of pressurized atmosphere, each containing a representative of the compact's signatory species. Eva could see them through the crystal. The insectoid Taraxians, the gelatinous Xylosians, the avian Kelvani, and 14 others, all watching, all waiting. The restraint frame sat at the sphere's center. Kalen was already secured in it. Magnetic cuffs at wrists and ankles, neural dampeners at his temples, a collar around his throat that would monitor his vitals until the very last second. Eva walked toward him. Her boots made no sound on the absorption flooring. The witnesses made no sound in their pressurized bubbles. The only noise was her breathing and the hum of the quantum dissonance generator warming up beneath the floor. She stopped in front of the control panel. One button, red, labeled in 17 languages, including one she'd never learned to read. Commander Salieri. The station's AI spoke from everywhere and nowhere. All witnesses are present. The prisoner has been informed of his rights and has waived his final appeal. Do you confirm readiness? Eva looked at Kalen. He looked back at her. No fear in his eyes now. Just that quiet, terrible calm she'd taught him. The calm of someone who had already made peace with his ending. I confirm readiness, she said. Please proceed with the execution. Her hand hovered over the button. Remember what you taught me. Remember why you taught it. She thought about the garden. About the 3 questions. About a grandmother who had died on a planet that no longer existed, speaking a language that had died with her. She thought about 12,000 people on an F-class world, praying in a dialect of old Earth Mandarin. She thought about the first time Kalen had held her hand, the meteor storm, the way his fingers had trembled. Then she thought about the compact, about its laws, carved in neutron star alloy, about its justice, so perfect it had never once made a mistake, about the one thing the compact had never understood. What are you willing to lose? Eva Salieri smiled, and she didn't push the button. The silence in the execution chamber lasted exactly 2.7 seconds. Then the observation booths erupted. Eva heard it as a dull roar through the polarized crystal. 17 species reacting in 17 different ways. The Taraxians clicked their mandibles in alarm. The Xylosians pulsed a deep, resonant note that vibrated through the floor. The Kelvana screamed, a high, thin sound like tearing silk. Kalen stared at her. His eyes were wide, confused, something flickering across his face that might have been hope or might have been terror. Commander, he said, what are you doing? Eva didn't answer. She was already moving, not toward the exit, but toward the restraint frame. Her fingers found the manual release latches, the ones she'd installed herself during the chamber's last maintenance cycle, the ones that weren't in any of the official schematics. The compact believed in perfect systems. Eva believed in backup plans. The magnetic cuffs clicked open one by one. Kalen's wrists came free. His ankles. The neural dampeners dropped to the floor with a sound like breaking teeth. Get up, she said. He didn't move. Eva, if you get up, we're both dead. If you stay there, you're dead anyway. She grabbed his arm, hauled him to his feet. He was heavier than she remembered. Or maybe she was just older, slower, running on 3 days of no sleep and 18 months of grief. Move. The observation booths were cycling now. Emergency protocols. The witnesses would be evacuating, filing reports, summoning security. Eva had maybe 90 seconds before the station's automated defenses kicked in. She pulled Kalen toward the service corridor, a narrow passage she'd mapped years ago during her first tour on Themis. A route that led to the maintenance shafts, the cargo bays, the emergency docking clamps where a ship was waiting. His ship, The one he'd used to leak the assessment report. The one she'd spent 6 months tracking down, disabling, and then enabling again in secret because even then, she'd known this moment might come. "You planned this," Kalen said as they ran. His voice was breathless, disbelieving. "You planned all of this." "I planned options." "You're committing treason." "I'm committing something." They hit the service corridor. The lights here were emergency red, pulsing in time with the station's alert sirens. Eva could hear boots behind them, security forces responding faster than she'd predicted. 70 seconds, maybe 60. The maintenance shaft was ahead. A circular hatch, sealed with a manual wheel she'd loosened 3 hours ago, before the prisoner transport even arrived. Kalen grabbed her shoulder, spun her around. His face was inches from hers. Sweat, blood from a cut on his lip. He must have bitten himself, must have been holding something back. "Why?" he demanded. "Why now? Why not 5 minutes ago? Why not when the arrest warrant first came through?" Eva met his eyes, green-brown, flecked with gold, the color of a forest on a world whose name she'd forgotten. "Because I needed to know," she said, "if you were still the person I trained. And you are." She turned back to the hatch, spun the wheel. It opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Beyond it, darkness. The maintenance shaft. The cargo bays. The ship. "Go," she said. Kalen didn't move. "Come with me." "I can't." "You can. You built the escape route. You disabled the tracking protocols. I built them for you." Her voice cracked. She forced it steady. "I'm the executioner, Kalen. If I disappear, they'll hunt us both. If I stay, they'll have someone to blame. Someone to try. Someone to I don't care. Edo." Boots. Closer now. 50 seconds. 40. Eva pushed him toward the hatch. Hard. Hard enough that he stumbled, caught himself on the rim, looked back at her with an expression she'd never seen before. Not anger. Not fear. Something worse. "Love. You taught me that the worst thing you can do is take away someone's choices," he said. "You're taking away mine. I'm giving you a chance to make more of them." "Eva, Gio." He went. The hatch closed behind him with a sound like a door slamming on everything she'd ever believed about herself. Eva stood there for a moment, breathing hard, listening to his footsteps fade into the maintenance shaft's darkness. Then, she turned around. The security team was there. 6 of them, Taraxians, mostly with their 4-legged stability and their chitinous armor and their mandibles clicking in that rhythm she taught Lieutenant Vex meant confusion. Vex himself was at the front. His compound eyes reflected the emergency lights in 1,000 fractured pieces. "Commander," he said, "the prisoner is gone." Eva raised her hands. "Empty. No weapon. No resistance. And I'm going to need to speak to the compact tribunal." Vex's mandibles clicked faster. "You aided a convicted felon. You sabotaged an execution. I know what I did." She met his eyes, all of them fractured and whole. "Take me in." The holding cell on Station Themis was designed for Xylosians. This meant it was cold, dark, and pressurized to a level that made Eva's ears pop every time she swallowed. She'd spent 6 hours here, according to the wall chrono. 6 hours of silence, except for the hum of the environmental systems and the occasional chime of her own heartbeat in her ears. She sat on the floor. The Xylosians didn't believe in furniture. They believed in suspension gels, which meant the cell had none. Just cold metal and cold air and the cold certainty that she'd just thrown away a 20-year career for a boy who might already be dead. The door opened. Not a security team this time. A single figure, tall and thin, draped in the ceremonial robes of the compact judiciary. Ambassador Tjell, Xylosian, one of the oldest beings in the galaxy, if you believe the legends. She'd never confirmed it. The Xylosians were cagey about their lifespans, the way old people everywhere were cagey about their age. "Commander Salieri." Tkel's voice emerged from a translator disc on his chest. Flattened, processed, stripped of whatever emotional resonance his original language contained. "You have committed an act of profound violation against the Compact's judicial processes. I am aware." "You are aware." The translator disc clicked. Eva had learned to read Xylosian body language, the way their gelatinous forms rippled with different colors. Tjell was pulsing a deep, slow blue. Anger, or disappointment, or something in between. "You are also aware that the Compact does not have a death penalty for its own officers. You will not be executed. You will be tried, convicted, and sentenced to neural reconditioning." Eva's stomach turned. Neural reconditioning. The compact's euphemism for what other species call brainwashing. They'd wipe her memories, restructure her loyalties, turn her into a perfect officer who would never again hesitate to push the button. "That's your offer?" she said. "Plead guilty, accept reconditioning, and pretend this never happened?" "That is not an offer. That is a statement of fact." Kel rippled. "However, the prisoner Kalen Arvad has not yet been recaptured. His ship was detected leaving the Torren Gate approximately 4 hours ago. He is heading toward the F-class world, the one he attempted to protect." Eva's heart stuttered. "You know where he's going." "We know, and we will follow." Kel paused. The blue deepened. "Unless you provide us with an alternative." She should have seen it coming. The compact never made mistakes, but it adapted. It learned. And it knew that Eva Salieri was the only person in the galaxy who could predict Kalen Arvad's next move. "You want me to hunt him," she said. "We want you to correct your error. Voluntarily. In exchange for a reduced sentence. Supervised duty. Limited privileges. But you will remain an officer of the compact, and you will bring the prisoner to justice." Eva laughed. It came out hollow, broken, nothing like a real laugh at all. "You want me to do your job for you? After I just proved I won't do it. We want you to do what you're trained to do." Kel rippled again. Faster now. The color shifted toward purple. Impatience. "You are an exceptional officer, Commander. The best the human species has produced in a generation. It would be a shame to waste that potential on a reconditioning tank." A shame. The words hung in the cold air. Eva thought about the garden. About the 3 questions. About a grandmother who had died on a planet that no longer existed, speaking a language that had died with her. "What are you willing to lose?" "I'll do it," she said. Kel rippled. Approval this time. Pale green. "Good. You will be provided with a ship, a crew, and full tactical support. The prisoner is to be taken alive, if possible. If not, you get what you wanted all along." The Xylosian didn't answer. He simply turned and flowed out of the cell, leaving Eva alone with the cold and the hum and the weight of what she'd just agreed to. She leaned her head back against the wall. "Kalen, what have I done?" The ship they gave her was called Due Process. Eva hated it immediately. It was too clean, too efficient, too full of compact design philosophy. Every surface smooth, every corner rounded, every system monitored by an AI that reported directly to tribunal oversight. She stood on the bridge, watching the jump gate calculations scroll across the main display. The F-class world was 12 hours away at maximum burn. 12 hours to figure out what she was going to say when she found him. "You look like hell." She turned. Lieutenant Vex stood in the doorway, his 4 legs planted wide, his mandibles clicking in that rhythm she'd taught him in. "I'm worried about you, but I don't know how to say it." "You're not supposed to be here," she said. "You're not on the crew manifest." "I updated the manifest." He stepped onto the bridge, his claws clicking against the deck plating. "Someone has to make sure you don't do anything stupid." Too late. Then, someone has to make sure you don't do anything more stupid. Eva almost smiled. Almost. "Vex, I'm hunting him. I'm bringing him back. That's what you wanted, isn't it?" "I wanted you to push the button." He stopped beside her, close enough that she could smell the musk of his species, like cinnamon and old paper. "But you didn't. And I've spent 6 hours trying to understand why. And I think maybe you saw something I didn't." "What did I see?" "A person." Vex's mandibles clicked slowly, thoughtfully. "Not a prisoner. Not a felon. A person. And you couldn't kill a person you loved." Eva's throat tightened. "I never said I loved him." You didn't have to." The jump gate calculations finished. The display blinked green. 12 hours. 12 hours to figure out what she was going to do. She sat down in the command chair. It was too large for her, designed for a Xylosian's amorphous form. But she'd learned to adapt. Learned to adapt to a lot of things. "Set course," she said. "Maximum burn." Vex moved to the navigation station. His claws danced across the controls. The ship hummed beneath them, engines spooling up, preparing to tear a hole in the fabric of space. "Commander," Vex said, "when we find him, what then?" Eva watched the jump gate shimmer into existence outside the viewport. A ring of light and mathematics, leading to a world she'd never seen, a man she'd once known, a choice she'd already made twice, and was about to make a 3rd time. "I don't know," she said. The ship jumped. The F-class world had no name. At least, no name the compact recognized. The 12,000 descendants of that long-ago crash called it Hearth. They called themselves Hearthkin, and they had no idea that a woman was coming to save them, or a man was coming to warn them, or a galaxy was coming to judge them. Eva watched the planet grow in the viewport, green and blue and white like old Earth, like every human colony she'd ever seen. But different, smaller, maybe, or just younger. A world that had been left alone for 700 years, developing its own rhythm, its own heartbeat. "He's down there," Vex said. He stood beside her, his compound eyes fixed on the sensor readouts. The prisoner's ship landed approximately 3 hours ago, near the largest settlement. Any sign of compact forces? Not yet. The tribunal is giving you a window. 24 hours. Then they send in the fleet. 24 hours. Eva nodded. More than she'd expected. Less than she needed. "Take us down. Quietly. I don't want him to know we're here until I'm ready." Vex hesitated. "Commander, if he sees the ship, he won't. He'll be in the settlement, talking to the Hearthkin, warning them." She turned from the viewport. He was always good at that. Talking to people. Making them believe. "And you?" She picked up a sidearm from the weapons locker. Checked the charge. Holstered it. "I was good at other things." The settlement was called First Light. It sat in a valley between two mountain ranges, built from the wreckage of the original transport ship and the bones of the forest that had grown around it. Eva approached on foot, through the tree line, watching. The Hearthkin were human. Genetically baseline, according to the Compact's assessment. No deviation, no mutation, just 700 years of isolation and adaptation. They developed darker skin to protect against the planet's harsh sun, taller frames to navigate the low gravity. But their eyes were human. Their voices, when she heard them singing in the distance, were human. And Kalen was among them. She spotted him in the settlement's central square. He stood on a platform made of salvaged hull plating, surrounded by a crowd of Hearthkin. He was speaking, not loudly, not urgently, but with that quiet intensity she remembered. The way he'd talked to the Kelvana separatist. The way he'd talked to her in the antechamber, asking for a story. Eva crept closer, close enough to hear. "They'll come with ships," Kalen was saying. "With weapons. With laws that don't care about your language or your god or the names you've given your children. They'll come, and they'll tell you it's for your own good. And if you resist, they'll call it sedition." A woman in the crowd, older, her gray hair braided with feathers, stepped forward. "What do you want us to do, stranger? Fight? We have no army, no weapons, no sheeps. You have each other." Kalen's voice softened. "You have this world. You have 700 years of history that the Compact can't take from you, no matter how hard they try. And you have me. You're one man. I'm one man who knows how the Compact thinks, how it fights, how it fails." He looked out over the crowd. "And I'm one man who has nothing left to lose." Eva stepped out of the tree line. The Hearthkin noticed her first, a ripple of movement, of whispered warnings. Then Kalen saw her. His face went pale, then flushed, then settled into something she couldn't read. "Commander," he said. "Kalen." The crowd parted as she walked toward the platform. No one tried to stop her. They could see the sidearm on her hip, the Compact insignia on her collar. They could see that she and the stranger shared something, a history, a tension, a language of glances and silences that didn't need words. She stopped at the edge of the platform, looked up at him. "You ran," she said. "You let me. Now I'm here to bring you back." Kalen jumped down from the platform, landed in front of her, close enough that she could feel his body heat. He was taller than her. He'd always been taller, but right now he seemed smaller, younger. The boy who'd shown up late to training, cocky and underfed and full of a hunger that had nothing to do with food. "Are you?" he asked. "Really?" Eva's hand drifted to her sidearm. She didn't draw it, just rested her fingers on the grip. "The tribunal gave me 24 hours. Then they send the fleet. If I bring you back, alive, they'll delay. Negotiate. Give the Hearthkin time to evacuate or appeal, or they won't negotiate." Kalen's voice was hard. "You know they won't. The Compact doesn't negotiate with sedition. It crushes it. Then, give me another option. I already gave you one. Stay. Fight. Help me, I can't." Her fingers tightened on the sidearm. "I'm an officer. I took an oath. You took an oath to justice." He reached out, slowly, and covered her hand with his, stopping her from drawing, stopping her from doing something they both regret. "Not to the Compact. To justice. There's a difference. Eva looked at their hands. His was warm, calloused. The hand of someone who'd worked, fought, killed. The hand of someone who'd held hers during a meteor storm. The garden, she said. The third question. What are you willing to lose? I've already lost everything. She pulled her hand away. My career, my reputation, any chance of ever going back to the life I had. I'm standing in a settlement on an illegal world, about to commit treason in front of 12,000 witnesses. What else do you want me to lose? Kaelin was quiet for a long moment. The hearthkin watched. The wind blew. Somewhere a child laughed. I want you to lose the idea that you have to do this alone, he said. I want you to lose the belief that the compact is the only thing keeping the galaxy from falling apart. I want you to lose your fear of losing. That's a lot of losing. It's a lot of winning, too. He smiled. That smile she remembered. The one that had made her forget, for just a moment, that she was his commander, and he was her student, and there were rules against holding hands during meteor storms. Stay, Eva. Help me protect these people. Not because the compact told you to. Because it's right. The sidearm felt heavy on her hip. The ship, due process with its clean surfaces and its rounded corners and its AI that reported directly to tribunal oversight, waited in the tree line. Vex was on board, probably watching through a sensor drone, probably clicking his mandibles in that rhythm that meant I told you so. 24 hours. Then the fleet. Eva Salieri made a choice. She didn't draw the sidearm. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't give a speech about duty or honor or the sanctity of compact law. She just sat down on the ground, right there in the settlement's central square, and started talking. Not to Kaelin, to the hearthkin, to the woman with the feather-braided gray hair, and the children with their too dark skin and their too tall frames and their eyes that were so achingly, beautifully human. 700 years ago, she said, a transport ship crashed on this world. The crew had a choice. They could wait for rescue, or they could build something new. They built. They grew. They became you. The woman with the gray hair stepped closer. How do you know this? Because I read the file. The one the compact didn't want anyone to read. The one that called you deviant and unsuitable and in need of correction. Eva looked up at her. You're not deviant. You're not unsuitable. You're the most human humans I've ever met. And I'm not going to let the compact erase you. Kaelin sat down beside her. Close enough that their shoulders touched. Close enough that she could feel him breathing. How, he asked, quietly, just for her. I don't know yet. She looked out at the crowd, at the settlement, at the green and blue and white of this small, stubborn world. But I know someone who might. She tapped her wrist comp, opened a channel to due process. Vex, I need you to do something for me. His voice came back, crackling with static. Commander, if you're about to ask me to commit treason, I'm about to ask you to commit journalism. There's a difference. A pause. Then I'm listening. Eva stood up, brushed the dirt from her uniform, walked to the center of the square where everyone could see her. The compact is sending a fleet, she said. 24 hours from now, they're going to arrive in orbit with weapons and re-education teams and a legal mandate to turn this world into a footnote in someone's archive. They're going to tell you it's for your own good. They're going to tell you it's justice. She turned in a slow circle, meeting as many eyes as she could. They're wrong. The hearthkin murmured. Shifted. The woman with the gray hair raised a hand. What do you want us to do? I want you to tell your story. Eva gestured to her wrist comp. I have a ship in the tree line with a powerful transmitter. I have an officer on board who's willing to break every regulation he ever learned. And I have 12,000 people who have been invisible for 700 years. She paused. Let the words sink in. The compact isn't afraid of weapons. It isn't afraid of armies. It's afraid of witnesses. It's afraid of being seen. So let's show the galaxy what happens when perfect justice meets imperfect people. Kaelin was staring at her. His eyes were wet. What? She asked. You're not hunting me, he said. You're recruiting me. I'm doing what I should have done 18 months ago. She held out her hand. I am choosing. He took it. The next 23 hours were chaos. Beautiful, exhausting, terrifying chaos. Vex transmitted the Hearthkin story across every channel he could access. Independent media, non-compact worlds, even a few backdoors inside the compact's own communication networks. The response was immediate. Outrage. Support. Offers of sanctuary from a dozen different species who'd been waiting for an excuse to defy the compact's authority. Eva coordinated it all. Not from a command chair this time, but from a makeshift table in the settlement square, surrounded by Hearthkin elders and Kalen's improvised war council, and the constant hum of due process's transmitter. She didn't sleep. Neither did Kalen. They worked side by side, shoulders touching, hands brushing, stealing glances when they thought the other wasn't looking. At hour 22, Vec's voice crackled through her wrist comp. Commander, the fleet just dropped out of jump. They'll be in orbit in 90 minutes. Eva's heart hammered. How many ships? 12, including a tribunal command vessel. Any word from the media networks? The story is spreading. But it's not enough. Not yet. A pause. Commander, if the fleet arrives and the Hearthkin are still here, I know. She closed the channel. Looked at Kalen. He was pale, exhausted, running on adrenaline and hope, and whatever else kept people going when the odds were impossible. 90 minutes, she said. I heard. We need more time. We need a miracle. Eva thought about the garden. About the 3 questions. About a grandmother who had died on a planet that no longer existed, speaking a language that had died with her. What are you willing to lose? Get everyone to the ship, she said. Kalen stared at her. What? Due process. It's not a warship, but it's fast. It can carry maybe 200 people. Maybe more if we pack them in. Get the children. The elders. Anyone who can't fight. Fight! Kalen's voice cracked. Eva, we can't fight 12 compact warships. We're not going to fight them. She stood up, stretched her tired muscles. We're going to talk to them. Talk. I'm still an officer. I still have clearance. I can request a parley. Buy you time to evacuate. She met his eyes. That's the miracle, Kalen. Not surviving. Giving other people the chance to survive. He grabbed her arm, held on tight. You'll die. Maybe. She covered his hand with hers. But I'll die choosing. And so will you. The compact fleet arrived at dawn. Eva watched it from the settlement's edge, standing alone on a hill overlooking the valley. 12 ships, black against the orange sky. Beautiful and terrible and absolutely certain of their own righteousness. Her wrist comp buzzed. Tribunal channel. Commander Salieri. Ambassador Tell's voice, processed through the translator disc. Flat. Emotionless. You have failed to deliver the prisoner. You have instead aided and abetted his sedition. The fleet is authorized to use force. I'm requesting a parley, Eva said. Under Compact Article 17. The right of any officer to address the tribunal directly before military action. A long pause. Then, granted, transport will arrive in 10 minutes. The shuttle landed in the settlement square. Eva walked toward it alone. Kalen was in the tree line, loading Hearthkin onto due process. She could see him in her peripheral vision, could feel his eyes on her back, could imagine the expression on his face. She didn't look back. The shuttle took her to the command vessel, to a conference room with 17 empty chairs and one Xylosian ambassador pulsing a deep, slow blue. You have 10 minutes, Tell said. Eva sat down across from him, folded her hands on the table. I'm not here to negotiate, she said. I'm here to bear witness. To what? To the moment the compact realized it couldn't win. Tell rippled. Purple. Impatience. Commander, we have 12 warships. You have a single transport vessel and a population of unarmed colonists. The math is not in your favor. The math isn't the only thing that matters. Eva leaned forward. In the last 23 hours, the story of the Hearthkin has been transmitted to over 300 worlds. Independent media is covering it. Non-compact governments are offering sanctuary. And if you fire on this world, if you kill these people, every single one of those witnesses will see it. She paused. The compact has never made a mistake. That's what you tell yourselves. That's what you tell the galaxy. But if you do this, if you erase 12,000 people because they didn't fit your definition of suitable, that's a mistake. And everyone will know it. Kel was silent for a long moment. The blue deepened, darkened, shifted towards something Eva had never seen before. Black. What do you want? The ambassador asked. I want the Hearthkin to be recognized. Not as deviants. Not as colonists. As people. With rights. With a voice. With a place in the galaxy that isn't dictated by an algorithm that decided 700 years ago that they didn't matter. And if I refuse, then you fire on an unarmed world. And I spend the rest of my life, however long that is, making sure everyone knows you did it. Kel rippled again. Faster now. The black pulsed, shifted, slowly transformed into something softer. Gray. The prisoner Kalen Arvad, the ambassador said. He will stand trial. No. He leaked classified information. He saved 12,000 lives. Eva's voice was steady. If that's a crime, then the compact doesn't deserve to call itself just. Another long silence. The shuttle hummed. The fleet waited. Somewhere on the surface, Kalen was loading children onto a ship, hoping for a miracle. 7 days, Tel said finally. The Hearthkin have 7 days to present their case to the tribunal. If they can prove that they are a distinct culture with a right to self-determination, the compact will recognize them. If not, they will. You seem very certain. Eva stood up, walked to the viewport, looked down at the green and blue and white of this small, stubborn world. I'm not certain, she said. I'm hopeful. There's a difference. She turned back to Kel, smiled. Small, tired, real, and hope is the one thing the compact never learned to calculate. She took the shuttle back to the surface, landed in the settlement square, where due process was still loading evacuees, where Kalen was still shouting orders, where the Hearthkin were still fighting for their future. He saw her step off the shuttle, stopped mid-sentence, stared. You're alive, he said. Disappointed? He crossed the square in 3 strides. Grabbed her, pulled her into a hug so tight she couldn't breathe. Don't ever do that again, he said into her hair. I make no promises. He pulled back, looked at her. Green-brown eyes, flecked with gold. The color of a forest she'd seen once on a world whose name she'd forgotten. 7 days, she said. We have 7 days to convince the compact that 12,000 people deserve to exist. That's not a lot of time. It's enough. She looked past him at the Hearthkin, at the woman with the gray hair braided with feathers, at the children with their too dark skin and their too tall frames, at the world they'd built from the wreckage of a crash, from 700 years of isolation, from nothing but hope and stubbornness and the quiet, unshakable belief that they mattered. What are you thinking? Kalen asked. Eva thought about the garden, about the 3 questions, about a grandmother who had died on a planet that no longer existed, speaking a language that had died with her. What do you love? What do you fear? What are you willing to lose? I'm thinking, she said, that the compact is about to learn something it should have learned a long time ago. What's that? She took his hand, held it tight, the way she should have held it during the meteor storm, the way she'd been afraid to hold it ever since. That you can't train someone to be human, she said. You can only remind them that they already are. Behind them, the sun rose over first light. The fleet hung in orbit, waiting. The galaxy watched through 1,000 different eyes. And on a small, stubborn world at the edge of nowhere, a woman who had been trained to kill chose, instead, to hope.